Hey everybody, so this video is the first in a series that I'll be doing exploring John Bonham's drumming on the great version of Moby Dick from Royal Albert Hall in 1970. I'd like to start by just looking at what he plays on the melody of the song and then get into the opening bars of his drum solo and start breaking down some of those things. This is basically the melody of the song. So let's just take a quick look at what it involves. The hi-hat and the cowbell are playing at the same time. That's clear enough. Now the bass drum and the snare are playing a rather almost kind of swung beat. Again, it's got, I keep going back to saying this, but there's a lot of New Orleans in John Bonham's drumming. There's a feeling in it that has a kind of, it's not quite a stiff, swing like, but it's definitely not straight eighth notes. So what's happening in the bass drum and the snare is basically, and I'll try to do it without playing the left foot and the right hand, is this. Now, it's a little hard to tell if he's doing it all the time, but I do hear, and you can see in some of the short clips, where his left hand is kind of ghosting into the backbeat, a la Clyde Stubblefield or many other great funk and soul drummers. So in other words, like this. Right there, you've got a... Right? So when you put that together with this, you get... And again, not every time feel free to play it loosely, because I believe that's what he did. But that's generally the gist of the beat. Now, of course, later on he would play a fill in there to kind of accompany the guitar lick, where he would play like this. But since we're talking about Royal Albert Hall, I figure I'll stay as close to that version as possible. Okay, so to begin his solo, he starts out with a motif, an idea that he borrowed from the great Max Roach. It's something that Max Roach played on an album called Drums Unlimited. He played a drum solo in 3/4 time that he called The Drum Also Waltzes. And the basic nugget of the idea is simply this. So you've got bass drum on beat 1, hi-hat on beat 2, and then the figure. Okay, now sometimes Bonzo would play that and repeat it and then start to develop ideas off of it, much the way Max Roach would do. However, on Royal Albert Hall, he doesn't play it for very long. He plays it just once, really, and then if I'm remembering correctly, he starts a little variation on it, which goes something like this. I think it's like da 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 da. And from there, he immediately starts to go into a different set of ideas in development. He kind of abandons that, and he plays a little lick that he actually kind of blunders just for one of the notes, and I think everybody who's seen the solo is familiar with it. I think he plays something like this. It's like, and I think what he meant to play was, however, he hits the rim and then he kind of glances up on the cymbal. Let me see if I can actually do this. That's kind of what he does. Anyway, I think this is what he meant to do, and I'll just play that series again from the drum waltzes part. So right there, he goes from that phrase into a more consistent hi-hat thing on the downbeats, and he starts to develop these ideas which will quickly go into some very rapid-fire paradiddle figures, which I'm going to break down. So right at that point, he plays this. Okay, so what is that? Let's just look at that one quick little thing. He's kind of thinking, I think, in 3/4 time. So it's like, or 6/4. You could think of it too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then the next phrase he plays is, and that is basically this. Got 2 singles followed by a double, and then a rim shot to finish the phrase. A big part to understanding how he's playing this part and playing these rapid fire paradiddles across the drums is understanding how he keeps things grounded with his left foot playing the downbeats here. And then the bass drum starts playing some very quick doubles. And because it's going by so quickly, it can be hard to hear the doubles. So what I would like to do is just kind of look at this motif and do it slowly. Okay? So what we have is this. Right? Now if we continue that, it's the bass drum is going to be playing doubles along with the double strokes in the hands. So let's break this down just on the snare drum. is a good exercise to do to get this into your hands. And then you can do it between the floor tom and the snare, which is actually what he does on Dazed and Confused often, just before the guitar solo, before the bow solo, which is this. So getting back to the solo. In the midst of this, we also have paradiddles. He plays a phrase that's really cool in this section where he goes from the tom to the floor tom and then back to the snare, and it's basically something along these lines. Okay, so that's at a slower tempo. It's and that sort of sets him into this really lightning quick thing that he does between the toms, and the bass drum is in the middle of it, kind of like this. Okay, so there's a little bit of that in there. There's some flams that he plays between the toms after he finishes that really crazy fast paradiddle thing. And again, that's the same figure with the hi-hat and the bass drum on the doubles and the paradiddles, and he's sticking across the toms while playing the doubles on the snare, which is something like this. If you can see that from the view above, but it's basically a paradiddle with these accents. Okay, so right there, at that point, that's when he starts to go into the paradiddle diddles. And he plays these flams across the toms. That's the Bonham engine, of course, as Terry affectionately calls it. Now we're into the Bonham engine, which is the hi-hats, downbeats. Now the bass drum is fully on the upbeats there. So it's again, I think of this, it seems like Bonham goes in and out of 3/4 and 4/4 time at will. It's kind of to me, it's a free form way of thinking He's just letting these ideas flow. But when he starts this out, it sounds like a 3/4 rhythm, because he comes off of those flams on the toms. I'm hearing that as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's So right there, when he moves to the toms, he's cycling through paradiddle diddle and I believe paradiddle diddle. So you've got this, and then you've got this. And he's playing through both of those, and he's interchanging them like this. Those are the basic nuts and bolts of all of that phrasing within there. So he also moves between the toms and the floor toms beautifully in that section, kind of like this. He picks up the pace considerably in that. He starts it out slower, but he can really throw down with that particular vocabulary. He had such a great, relaxed, swinging command and control over that phrasing. So that's basically it for that first section of the workout on Royal Albert Hall. Of course, after this point, he gets into some things where he's playing his right hand, kind of a fast single on the right hand, and playing some very interesting broken up rhythms on the tom and bass drum, which I will save for the next video. So for now, that's about it. I hope this first lesson has been helpful. Thanks so much for your patience and for your support of my channel. And please check out People's Front of Zeppelin. Subscribe if you haven't already. We've got loads of good videos up there, drum cam, guitar cam, bass cam as well. Check out all the playlists, which are separated according to those categories. And we also have a Patreon page now, where for a low monthly fee you can have access to our play-alongs, which are basically music -1. So if you're a guitar player and you want to play along or download one of the songs without guitar, you can do that through the Patreon subscription. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon.